Okay, if you're a parent that's questioning whether or not something you did hurt your child because you just found out that your child is going to have a deformity, a disability, or whatever the case may be, then this video is for you. So, this is a story time of when I found out that my son would be born with bilateral cleft lip, and he was born with the palate involvement as well. But this is a story time to uplift parents, especially mothers that are pregnant, that just had babies, or that have children and that have that guilt inside of them, that maybe they did something wrong when the baby was in utero while they were pregnant with them. This is just to let you know that you didn't do nothing wrong. You didn't do nothing wrong. That baby was born the way that baby was born because God trusted that baby to you. And sometimes, we can learn lessons in situations that come into our lives. So I was active duty military. I was a major in the United States Air Force, and I was pregnant with my third child. And I remember I had just did clinicals on my nurses. I just did I rounded on them to make sure that they were good, and then I had a doctor's appointment because this day I was gonna find out whether or not I was gonna have a boy or a girl. And I remember laying on the ultrasound table, and the technician got real quiet, and she said, "Ma'am, has anybody talked to you about your baby?" And I'm like, no, what do you mean? And so, next thing I knew, a doctor came in and was telling me that, my son would be born with bilateral cleft lip. They saw, they saw the slits in his face. I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. Mind you, I was a nurse, but I'm not a pediatric nurse. I knew what it was because you see it with children that are on the continent of Asia and the continent of Africa. A lot of children have cleft lips, and you see it all the time on TV. And you don't see it too much over here, except for you see it in some white children. You rarely see it in black children over here in the United States. Well, it didn't really set in, and then they were saying, that he would be, they don't know if the palate, meaning if the roof of his mouth would be closed by the time he was born. And so, all of this information was given to me, and, that's when, they do want to do the genetic testing, and when they want to, do so much stuff. Of course, they had to do a test for his heart. They did off the top of my head, but they checked for his heart while I was still pregnant because a lot of babies do have, heart conditions or are born with Down syndrome or things like that. But I'm going to insert here that my husband and I, once I did talk to him, we decided we were not going to do no testing as far as genetic testing because whatever God blessed us with, that's what we were going to raise and we were going to love, right? So going back to that day, I remember leaving, and I thank God I had already finished work. So I went out to my car and sat in the parking lot, and I just started crying. I can remember I just started crying because I'm like, Lord, what did I do? Because I know my pregnancy was advanced maternal age. I'm old, honey. Uh, and, anything over 35 years old is AMA, advanced maternal age. And by that time, at that time, I was pushing 40. And I remember sitting in the car, and I remember just crying and just saying, Lord, give me strength. Now, mind you, this is the first time in my life that I can remember that I didn't say, Lord, take this away. I don't want to deal with this. Take the situation away. I did not say none of that. I was like, Lord, give me strength to get through this. And that's what he did. He gave me strength. He gave me strength, baby. When I tell you God gave us strength, whew. Anyways, I remember calling my sister, and I didn't tell her, but I just needed to hear her voice. And, she was just, I think I asked her to pray for me, and she was just praying. And then I remember going home, and this was around, if I'm not mistaken, Father's Day was close by. And I remember telling my husband, and he did the gender reveal that he was going to have a little boy. Because this man didn't think that he could have boys because he has girls. But he was so happy to have a boy. And I remember when I told him about the cleft lip, and he stood up in the paint, baby. When I tell you, I was scared to tell him, because you don't know how people are going to react. You don't know how people are going to react, and you don't know how people are going to react. And so he was like, that's my baby. I don't care. We going to deal with whatever comes, like, that's my baby. And so that just made me feel so good. And he didn't blame me, because you don't know. He didn't blame me. But one thing he did said, okay, well, we got a cosmetic issue. He wouldn't let me say it was a deformity. He wouldn't let me say a disability, nothing like that. He was like, he has a cosmetic issue, and we're going to fix the cosmetic issue. Now, he's had 2 major surgeries to fix the cosmetic issue. And it was not cosmetic. It was, it was major surgery. But he did have 2, and children with cleft lip, they have to have several surgeries. So he's going to have another one down the line when he gets older, where they'll have to do, if I'm not mistaken, a bone graft to take from his hip to put into his, once his adult teeth grow in, and then he'll have to have braces and the whole 9. But that's in a couple more years. But I'm saying all of this to say, God, I believe that my baby was put into my life because to complete our family. He was put into our lives to complete our family and to take us through it's just encouragement for me. I'm just encouraging other moms that you're not alone. Your baby is loved because you love your baby. You did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. Excuse me. And just know that you're a good mama. That's all. Love you. God bless.